In engineering physics, we are discussing mechanics. In the last session under mechanics, we looked at Kepler's laws of motion and also seen how we can deduce Kepler's first law, that is law of orbits, where each planet is moving in an elliptical orbit around the sun, with sun at the one of the foci is obtained. Now we shall see how we can get Kepler's second law from gravitational law. Now, according to Newton's law of gravitation, the planet experiences a centripetal acceleration toward the center of the sun because of force of gravitational attraction between the two. Therefore, it is not supposed to have any transverse acceleration at all. Hence, we can say 1 by r into dB dt of r square d theta by dt equal to 0. This is what we call as r square d theta by dt is nothing but a constant. You can call that constant as h. So therefore, when you are representing r square d theta by dt as constant h, then in that equation, then what will become? It will become something like this. We can come to that conclusion. Now if you see this, so with the quantity 1 by 2 r square d theta, it is an area described by the radius vector SA as shown in the figure. So what this figure says, we are assuming in this elliptical orbit, sun is at this position, A to B is the planet motion along the orbital, SA is the radius vector, dt is the small time interval we are measuring, where it is making an angle d theta. Okay, so therefore area described by this ellipse will be naturally what? 1 by 2 r square d theta. So this quantity of 1 by 2 r square d theta is nothing but the area described by this radius vector SA, and it can be shown here that you can draw this line from the sun to the planet in the time interval dt. Therefore, area described or time taken, that is the aerial velocity of the planet around the sun, is constant. This is nothing but the law of Kepler's second equation. So from that equation, first equation, if you substitute this value, describing this as area described, you can obtain r square d theta by dt being constant. Then automatically 1 by 2 r square d theta by dt is nothing but h by 2, which is also constant. This is nothing but area described by time taken. So when you say area described by time taken, nothing but area by time is nothing but distance by time is nothing but aerial velocity. So therefore aerial velocity of the planet around the sun is constant. So what is Kepler's second law? Kepler's second law is a law of constant aerial velocity. That is, the radius vector from the sun to a planet sweeps out equal areas and equal intervals of time. So aerial velocity is found to be constant. Therefore, it is going to sweep out equal areas and equal intervals of time. That is nothing but Kepler's second law. That is, the moment you got aerial velocity being constant, it is nothing but the law of areas or the second law of Kepler. Right? Understood? Now let us see how we can deduce third law of Kepler in this. Let us say the time period is t. Distance by velocity is nothing but time period. Therefore, orbit being elliptical, velocity being aerial velocity. So area of elliptical path by aerial velocity will be the time period. So therefore, aerial elliptical path is nothing but pi AB. Aerial velocity is nothing but 1 by 2 r square d theta by dt. Just now in second law of Kepler we have seen. So where this A and B, these are semi-major axes of the ellipse. Okay. Then let us simplify this. So therefore t will be this 1 by 2, you bring it up. So when you bring denominator 1 by 2 to the numerator, so it will become 2 pi AB by r square d theta by dt. But r square d theta by dt is what? R square d theta by dt is nothing but h. So therefore, for r square d theta by dt, you can write the constant h. Therefore, time period equation will get modified as 2 pi ab by h. Understood? Now take the square of this, then t square will be 2 pi ab by h whole square. Nothing but t square is equal to 4 pi square a square b square by h square. Let us call it as equation 2. Now interestingly, at semi-latus rectum, you can write like this: b square by a as L, and that is nothing but h square by gm. So b square will be, by cross multiplying, you will get h square a by gm. Substitute the value of b square in this equation. What we will get? T square will become 4 pi. For b square you are substituting this value. So this will be 4 pi square a square by h square into b square. So therefore 4 pi square a square by h square into, what is b square? H square a by gm. Okay. So that you can simplify as t square equal to 4 pi square a cube by gm. This h square will, you can strike it off. A square into a is a cube. Therefore 4 pi square a cube is the numerator and denominator is gm. Right? Now in this, if you see, 4 pi is a constant, gm is a constant. So therefore obviously you can take 4 pi square by gm as a constant quantity. Let us say call it as some k, Kepler constant k. So therefore 4 pi square by gm being taken as constant quantity k, then t square can be written as t square equal to k into a cube. When you try to eliminate this constant with equality as a proportion, therefore from this you can write t square is proportional to a cube. What is t square? T square is nothing but square of the time period of the planet. What is a? A is nothing but major axis of the ellipse. So therefore cube of the major axis of the ellipse. So from t square is proportional to a cube, you can interpret as the square of the time period of a planet is proportional to cube of the semi-major axis of the ellipse. That is nothing but Kepler's third law only. Na? What is Kepler's third law basically talks about? Kepler's third law, which is known as law of time period, it says square of the time period of a planet's orbital motion can be proportional to the cube of its mean distance from the sun. That is, t square is proportional to r cube. It is r t square by r cube is constant for all planets. So when you say that t square is proportional to a cube, it has given you the value. And that value shows that the square of the time period of a planet is proportional to cube of the semi-major axis of the ellipse. What is that semi-major axis of the ellipse? Semi-major axis of the ellipse is nothing but mean distance from the radius. So therefore from this you can say t square by a cube or t square by r cube is constant. That is nothing but Kepler's third law. This is how you can deduce Kepler's laws of planetary motion from Newton's laws. So let us summarize the entire mechanics now. In the current session, in continuation to the previous session, we tried to show you the deduction of Kepler's second law as well as Kepler's third law from Newton's laws. Now if you see the whole mechanics, how do we summarize this is, the inertia of a body is directly proportional to its mass. Based on Newton's first law, in the absence of any net force on a body, then the body is either at rest or it moves with a constant speed in a straight line. So the rate of change of linear momentum of a body with time is directly proportional to the net external force applied on it, and this change takes place in a direction of the applied force. Similarly, other laws, if you see, to every action there is an equal and opposite reaction, or mutual actions of two bodies depend on each other are always equal and directed to contrary parts. And also, central forces result due to interaction between different types of particles and are responsible for their motion. So when the force acting on a particle is always acts along the line joining the particle to a fixed point, it is called central force. So the areal velocity of a radius vector for a particle under the central force is constant, or the radius vector sweeps area at a constant rate. So if the body moves under the action of a central force, then the force is radial and is always towards a fixed point. The space around the body within which its gravitational force of attraction can be expressed, or the space around the body within which it experiences a gravitational force of attraction, it is what is known as gravitational field. So the gravitational attraction force acting on the planet towards the sun is responsible for the planet's centripetal acceleration. So in entire mechanics, what we have learned is that we are able to identify the forces and moments in mechanical systems using scalar and vector quantities. Also, we are able to interpret the equation of motion of a rigid rotating body, that is what is torque on a rigid body. And we are able to extend the Newton's second law of inertial and non-inertial frame of reference. And also we are able to explain the consideration of Earth's rotation in designing and launching objects into space. So this is the basic idea of entire mechanics, wherein we just recapped the basic laws of vectors and scalars, and also we discussed about the rotational frames, and also we looked at conservative forces, gradient of potential, torque and angular momentum, Newton's laws in inertial and non-inertial accelerating and non-inertial frames of references, rotating frame of references with constant angular velocity, qualitative explanation of Foucault's pendulum experiment, rigid body and identifying its angular velocity and momentum, center of mass and center of gravity concepts along with Kepler's laws. So this is what basically concludes mechanics as per the university syllabus.